All right, we're here. We're going to do one more segment here. Now, look at the New York Yankees had a rare hiccup. They faced off Toronto and Tampa Bay, and it looked like they were going to sweep both teams out of the dump. And they had a very rare bullpen mishap, and Toronto wound up winning the final game. It was 10-9, but they swept they took 2 out of 3 from the Twins, swept the Cubs, swept the Rays, and took 2 out of 3 from Toronto. You can't ask for a better streak than what the Yankees have done since allowing that walk-off against the Chicago White Sox on my birthday, on my 50th birthday on May 14. And the Yankees were already 24-9 at that point. Mm-hmm. Since then, the Yankees are 25-8. I mean, they are on such a streak that even if they play 500 ball the rest of the way, they'll still win 97 games. Yeah. And they're probably not going to play 500 ball the rest of the way. So what I'm saying is,
what are you saying?
I'm saying things are clicking for the Yankees.
Yeah.
I'm saying things. You know what? I mean, they had good pitching last year, and their bats were unreliable. And now you have Judge having the type of season he's having. Nestor Cortez. By the way, let me say one thing about Nestor Cortez. Not only is he pitching like an all-star, he's insanely likable. And he did a mic'd up thing for Yes, where you just couldn't. I'm a native New Englander, classic Yankee hater, and I can't help but find him to be this, this lovable, fun guy. If you're a Yankee fan, savor this season because things are clicking for this Yankee team. That I mean, look, they're obviously making the playoffs.
Yeah,
and it's just right now this is a World Series or bust team, and I trashed the Yankees all off season for the off season that they had, and I got to eat a little crow, at least as we're here. It's late June, okay? It's late June, which means July and the midpoint of the season is right around the corner. And the Yankees are on pace to win, 118 games?
Yeah.
You got to give them credit.
If you go back to our preseason prediction podcast, I'm not sure if we had them making the postseason, Sully.
I didn't.
We're going to have to eat some doo-doo probably at the end of this season or do something because it hasn't been good for us on our predictions from that front. But the state of New York baseball right now, I mean, it's just looking phenomenal.
Both amazing.
Both the Mets and the Yankees. But the biggest problem maybe for the Yankees, the biggest issue that could be on the horizon is maybe the injection of Aroldis Chapman back to that bullpen because it seems like they're just – They seem addicted to putting him in as the ninth inning closer guy when we all know it should be Clay Holmes.
There's no excuse to put anyone but Clay Holmes in the closer spot. I'm sorry. At some point, you set a closer out to pasture. The Yankees, since putting Clay Holmes in there, have lost 3 games?
He's nasty. I mean, what's his ERA? Like a point?
I can think of 3 games last year that Chapman lost that were grotesque. Who would have thought that Clay Holmes was going to be the key acquisition made in the last couple of years, which just goes to show you don't always know. But another thing you don't always know, 2 teams that I picked to win the division are now with losing records and not even in second place in their division as we're entering late June.
Who?
Chicago White Sox, who are being managed by the late Tony La Russa.
Okay.
And the Seattle Mariners were being managed by Scott Service. Now, the Mariners pushed their chips in the center of the table. They brought in Robbie Ray. They made the big trade with Cincinnati. They won 90 games last year, and this was maybe not World Series or bust, but we have the longest postseason drought, not only of baseball, but with hockey,
all of them,
the NBA, the NFL. I think there are USFL teams that have made the postseason more recently than the Seattle Mariners. 2001, there are players in the major leagues who were born after the last trip Seattle took to the postseason. And so this year was all about breaking that streak. And the fact that not only are they not in first place, but they're losing a pile of games that they should be winning. And I actually don't. Did they win today? I don't remember.
I don't even know.
No, they lost. That's right. Because Mike Trout hit 5 home runs in 5 games. So they got their butts whipped by an underachieving Angels team. And so, look, La Russa has been making lousy decision after lousy decision. White Sox fans are pulling their hair out. They're pulling their hair out, and I'm assuming La Russa's pulling his hair out and then putting clumps of poorly colored hair back on his head.
God.
And someone has to take the fall for the Mariners. Now, let me throw this out to you, okay? The Angels fired Joe Maddon, who everyone going into the season thought was an elite Hall of Fame manager. Mm-hmm. But the Angels are also a very dysfunctional organization. They change their managers too often. They change their GMs too often. They have an owner who seems to be living in the past. Now, I do not believe that Joe Maddon suddenly got dumb. I think this was a poorly constructed team. If I were the Seattle Mariners and I see Joe Maddon's floating out there as a fired manager, wouldn't I see this as an opportunity to swipe a Hall of Fame manager? Kind of like in 1986, the Chicago White Sox fired their manager, Tony La Russa, and the A's said, oh, wait a second. And they picked him up, and suddenly we found out La Russa wasn't dumb. It was a dysfunctional organization. Now, that same La Russa, who's already in the Hall of Fame and has nothing to prove and is completely outmatched, and I'm not taking anything against his career. He's obviously a wonderful manager, but eventually you got to hang him up. Wouldn't a native of Illinois with a World Series championship under his belt, who's also floating out there, who's also named Joe, be an interesting fit for that team? What if Joe Girardi takes over the White Sox and Joe Maddon takes over the Mariners, and those two teams get a high-profile new manager in the team and may give them a little spark? Thoughts?
You know what? I don't hate it, Sully, and I kind of like it. I kind of feel the vibe of Joe Girardi to the Chicago White Sox. I don't know, but that personality seems to fit better with him in Chicago as opposed to him in Philadelphia. I don't know, something about that mixing, right? And then Joe Maddon, I mean, he's kind of the curse breaker with what he did with Tampa Bay and Chicago. Now, he couldn't break any curses with the Angels, but the Angels never fixed their biggest issue, which was the pitching. The pitching is terrible the whole tenure during Mike Trout career, and he just never addressed that. Despite them upgrading the managerial position, they never upgraded that rotation, so it was never going to work. So him, Mariners, I think would be pretty interesting. And the Mariners are a franchise who we know longest postseason drought, but at least they're trying to make moves and get better. Like we saw what they did with the Winker deal and the Suarez deal and acquiring Robbie Ray. Now, it is funny because on a podcast with Javier Reyes, we did our winners and losers podcast, and I said, big loser, anyone who thought Robbie Ray was legit, because Robbie Ray is not that guy. He's not that guy. Sully, what do you want to say? Convince me otherwise.
I'll say that he got off to a disappointing start, but his last couple of starts have been really good.
That's
and I mean, let me go to baseballreference.com. It's New York's website. The history of the planet Earth. Is he going to win the Cy Young Award this year? No, he does lead the league in innings pitched. So he gives him a little bit he gives him some durability. All right. And maybe last year was that fluke. Okay. But in his last, 3 starts, he struck out 17, 19, but he's let up 4 earned runs in his last 19 innings.
Listen,
and so
Robbie Ray, he can give you some length. The issue is he's going to also give up home runs. He's going to strike out people, but he's going to go 6 innings, 5 earned runs, and 9 strikeouts almost every start. And it's just going to be frustrating. He also loves to walk people. I just don't know if he's worth the $20 million that the
All right, maybe not, but I think that maybe, just maybe, you put a better manager in that situation, and maybe you sort of jolt that team,
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
thinking,
I think from overall standpoint of the team and just the dysfunctionality of the the overall franchise, I think Joe Maddon could come in there and help steer that ship. And I think he would be good for that franchise. But I don't know if he's going to fix a Robbie Ray issue unless you got Brent Strom in that organization. I don't think Robbie Ray is ever going to become the consistent Cy Young Award winner that we saw last season. I think it was a fluke, and I think he's going to go back to being the 3 true outcome guy we've seen throughout his career.
fair enough, but I do think Joe Maddon would be a good. For a minute, because I was kicking this around in my head, and I thought, like, what if Joe Maddon replaces Tony La Russa and Joe Maddon wins with both the White Sox and the Cubs? But then I thought I thought Girardi is a better fit for the White Sox,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that Maddon was a better fit for Seattle. And I think that there's a way. I know, and I've said this before. La Russa's there because of Reinsdorf. And again, get the drinking going again. I've always believed that one of Bruce Bochy's lieutenants, take a sip, my listeners who drink every time I say Bruce Bochy's lieutenants. I still understand why Roberto Kelly isn't a major league manager. It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But that being said, you have 2 guys who, if they win the World Series with another franchise, well, Joe Maddon's going to the Hall of Fame anyway. But if Girardi wins a World Series with another franchise, we may start talking about him in that situation too. But the fact of the matter is that these were 2 managers just 2 years ago were looked upon as like the most sought after managers for a franchise to pick up. And now they're sitting there working on their LinkedIn page. So you have 2 teams that are unbelievably disappointing this year. Give it a shot.
What do you think is saying the bigger PR hit? Because I feel like it's Joe Girardi. He feels like I just feel like there's so much built-in equity and like prestige when it comes to Joe Maddon and like mystique behind him. I feel like there's a lot less, fandom toward Joe Girardi. I feel like he's not as respected around the league.
Oh, it's a huge disappointment for Maddon. Maddon's job was to come to the Angels and make Trout a champion. He was looked at. I mean, Girardi. While Girardi received a Manager of the Year award with the Marlins, Girardi had this reputation a little bit of like, oh, did he win because the Steinbrenner family paid a pile of money? I thought him winning with a different organization would show that he was, and I actually think he's a fine manager. I think the Philly situation may have been something out of his control, or maybe it was the wrong fit for him.
Who would you rather want though if you had a neutral team? Middle.
Maddon.
Okay, that's how I feel too.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily think that's a knock on Girardi.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Maddon's a Hall of Fame manager. And
I know you're a big Joe Girardi guy. That's your guy.
I am. I think he's a smart baseball guy.
Yeah, he's been fine.
And I thought the Yankees, I thought he did a wonderful job in 2017. Mm-hmm. He was the manager when they rebuilt that team, and he left the team they rebuilt without tanking, but they rebuilt, and the team that he managed in 2009 bore almost no resemblance to the team he managed in 2017, save for CC Sabathia. And by the time he left, you had the likes of Judge and Gregorius and Gary Sanchez were all key players on that team. By the time he left, that's a lot different than the team that he inherited with Pettit and Jeter and Posada and A-Rod and Rivera and with the acquisitions of Teixeira and Sabathia. I think he's a smart, fine man. He had a Marlins team who's this was there's the payroll for the Marlins that he managed in 2006. I was holding up a coin, and he had them contending into September for a wild card spot. There's a reason he won the Manager of the Year that year. There's also a reason he was fired. Apparently, he's a big pain in the butt. But maybe some teams need a pain in the butt. I don't know. I think that he's a smart enough manager that he does straddle the analytics and the traditional world. So I think that I think he would be a good fit for some teams. I just think that of the 2 free agent star managers out there, other than Roberto Kelly and Henson Mullins, or also other than Schilt, who was Manager of the Year back in 2019, and now it's like, get out of here. I would rather have Maddon, but that's not a knock on Girardi.
Yeah, and for Girardi, it'll probably be a breath of fresh air after managing in New York and Philadelphia, probably the two hardest markets to be a manager in, where you're just going to be scrutinized on a daily basis. I mean, the Chicago market is not any easier, but at least you're like the secondary team in Chicago. I mean, the White Sox fans probably aren't as brutal as those Chicago Cubs fans. So I think it would be a nice change of pace for Joe Girardi after being in New York and Philadelphia.
I would like to see Girardi manage a team that is like from the ground up, like Cincinnati.
Like
you know,
rebuild.
or like sort of like be there for the rebuild.
Oh, I
And
got one for you. How about this? Because I'm this is his final year of his contract. He's only on a 1-year deal. Torey Lovello could be out after this season because I'm not a big Torey Lovello guy. How about we bring in Joe Maddon and Joe Girardi to Arizona, baby?
I think Girardi would be a great manager for Arizona. I do. I think that because they're not a bad team. No, they're just not a 100-loss team. This is not a tanking team, but there is some talent on the team. But it needs. I would be all for that. I think Girardi managing Arizona and with some of the expectations being not sky high. I think that'd be a good choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, we brought full circle.
Yeah, full circle moment. And a lot of these things with the managers, you also can't overlook the front office because like we said with Joe Maddon, like a lot of the success of the managers is going to be predicated on what the front office does to actually support the managers and put a team on the field that could help win. And when you're Joe Maddon and you're the manager of the Angels and you just never get any pitches, it's never going to be a competitive team. So hopefully if wherever these Joes go, if it is the Seattles or the Chicago White Sox, like we talk about, hopefully these front office and ownerships can also help support the managers that they hire.
Well, I support you and I'm going to hire you. So, hey, Millard, another good crossover. Tell people where they can follow your show.
Well, you can follow me on Twitter, my personal account at CreatorsThomas24 for my personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks on both Twitter and Instagram. Just type in that little search bar. I'm sure you can find it.
And me, I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. This particular podcast, we're at Locked On MLB Pods on both Twitter and on Instagram. Hey, it's the 20th day of June. Hope you had a great weekend. And it looks like we're going into late June, and we're going to see some of these pennant races start to make sense. What happens when it turns to July? You've got one more month to make the big trades and figure out what kind of contender you have. We are in the middle third of the baseball season. This has been the Locked On crossover with Locked On MLB and Locked On Diamondbacks. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Call me Sully. That's Millard Thomas. Don't call him Sully. Call him a fist pumper right there, right there.